Levett. I'm basically the owner of Levett Consultancy. Basically, I've been involved within the actual education industry literally most of my entire life, from basically 19 years of age, basically working for a local authority for 25 years. And I was responsible for delivering IT sort of services. And I worked through a different range of different roles in there until I got to the point of basically being responsible for delivering IT for local authority. I also was a member of the London Grid for Learning, basically back in 1999, when they was given money by the government to actually introduce broadband services across the London region. And I was also part of the London Assembly who introduced Oyster cards. So that's how far back sort of I go, but most of my career has all been bathed in public sector. When basically the government made sort of like cuts to local authorities in 2010, I decided to actually move on and actually create a consultancy business to help public sector and particularly schools get the best value out of their IT services. Because one of the things I saw in local authorities a long time was schools invest in technology, but sometimes technology is not used the right way, or they invest in technology on an annual basis, and that technology then is just sits in the cupboard then after the first year, never used again. So that was always one of the concerns, to make sure they can use it correctly. But secondly, with that, I also was at the forefront working with Bechtle. I know Bechtle's no longer with us, and there's different guises of Bechtle and things within government now these days. Basically, I was also part of done stuff with Bechtle, and I was also one of the visionary things of looking at getting schools to look at using cloud computing as far back into 2005, 2006. But the problem with cloud computing then was literally broadband internet connectivity wasn't strong enough, infrastructure's not good enough, and then there was that thing where the government introduced virtual learning environments and managed learning environments to schools. Everyone had to, I think by 2010 everyone had to have one in place, but then obviously the financial issues hit and that became redundant at that sort of point. Fast forward to 2020, basically more and more people started jumping on the cloud simply because of the COVID thing at that point of view, and the DfE done a lot of work on trying to get schools moving across to that sort of platforms. And now basically post 2020, 2022, the cloud is just sort of like growing from strength to strength. So as a business, we've been involved since 2010 and trying to help schools get the best out of technology, helping them move to the cloud. Obviously the conversation become easier basically when the pandemic started about what the cloud is and why you need to use it. And we just see that as a strength going forward. A lot of basically our partners are here today to discuss their particular things, but the key side of it is all around digital transformation and all around using cloud-based technology, because we think that's the best way going forward, and that's one of the DfE main ideas as well, where schools should be looking at cloud technology. We've got Google here today, and I would put it out there that we was one of we probably was the first Google's partner within the UK. We was basically involved with Google since 2011, where we helped basically set up at that time the education team with a few of their colleagues within Google, and obviously Google's education has gone from strength to strength since 2011. I would also say as well, we are on agnostics thing as well, where we basically work with Microsoft as well, and one of our strengths as a business is actually integrating those both products together, so schools and the education sector as a whole gets best of both worlds from that, using their multiple devices. So as a business, we like to see ourselves as an integrator who works with schools and works with your IT teams, IT companies, whatever you have within that school environment, to help you get the best out of your digital transformation, making sure that your learners can get an education wherever they're based, whether that's physically within your buildings or working or basically learning from home. As I was mentioning, is that basically in 2010, I took these pictures a while back, but basically in 2010, this is what basically IT suites look like. And one of the common things I get asked all the time, why do I still need an IT suite? Do I still need one now in like basically 2022? We still sort of say, actually, if you don't need an IT suite, you need to be looking at a media lab, because computing now is actually across the curriculum. You have mobile devices work across different areas of the curriculum. And the ICT suite always was an area in a school where you had basically, you couldn't invest in full technology across all classrooms because they're expensive buying equipment. And that was always the one go-to. So I remember years ago, it used to be booked out and people used to book it out and things on a schedule when people can use that. Now these days, everyone's using mobile devices, whether that's iPads, Chromebooks, and within the school environment. The IT suite still needs to be a place of basically the high-end stuff. So this is where we're looking at video editing, creating digital skills. Basically, when we're doing audio, creating radio stations, doing TV stations, stuff like that, from in that thing to having those higher level sort of like PCs or devices there. But the purpose of the cloud side of thing, where it becomes really useful, is that children can go out and actually use any devices to capture content, create content on that devices, but they got to place them when they come back into their school, whether they've been on field trips or whatever. They would come into the school, go to their basically media lab, and they'll be able to actually download their stuff from the cloud and actually edit that content and create a school video, create a school radio station from that to present this is what we do as a school and things. So media labs, I think, are going to be more of the future for schools, and where the ICT suite dies away, where the media lab supports the richer sort of like computing side of curriculum, from programming to creativity and stuff. And I think when we talk a lot of children, so many children these days want to be creators and doing creativity stuff like that. And I think that's because of YouTube. A lot of children follow YouTube, and they've got YouTube stars now, where we was at school, it's basically looking at TV stars, it's YouTube sort of stars now. A lot of people use those as role models. That's the rise of the cloud. What does this mean for basically currently schools who are not fully invested in the cloud and haven't moved fully to the cloud basically within the pandemic or before that? Is that you need to look at rethinking of how you'd use computing across the whole school. You need to plan ahead, basically meeting the challenges of what cloud-based infrastructure brings to you as an organisation, and think how your workforce will be affected using cloud-based infrastructure. What training does your support teams and end users actually need? And that's really important. And quite a lot of times when I'm involved in doing digital transformation with schools, is that it's always, when I talk to schools, about we want to do this to make sure our learners get this in place, and we're looking at this technology, how will this help us? The problem you get with that is that schools then seem to discount their staff and their actual continuing professional development, what staff actually need to keep on top of this latest technology. And one of the benefits of moving to the cloud, it is a flexible, fluid sort of technology, which does keep changing. And it basically keeps people up to date with the latest things. But so your workforce needs to change and adapt with cloud technology. Basically, you need to think about your budget for basically cloud as well, because I was talking to someone last week, is that when we're looking at cloud stuff, and you look at things now, so we're talking about children as well, is that when we're looking at basically go back 10, 15 years ago, we had a capital budget, and a capital budget was all about buying a certain amount of PCs, a certain amount of devices, or technology, software, whatever, for basically for our school, based on an annual sort of basis or a 3-year basis. Now technology is moved into a point of where it's become a subscription-based service. And when you think about that, that means it becomes out your revenue budgets. So you need to be making sure your revenue budgets can support IT, where capital budgets are not basically shouldn't be the big budget just for IT. It should be looking at revenue now, because there's more and more services subscription-based. And if you take it down to your sort of like level as consumers outside your working professional lives, and then you look at also children, lives as well, is that basically most services, things you have now in the home, are subscription based. You think a television used to be consumed just by turning on the television, looking at a TV guide, what's coming on at what time. Most people now seem to have a Netflix subscription, a Disney Plus subscription, and they just pick and choose when they want to watch things based on when they want to do that. And when I was talking to someone, I was thinking about children coming through education now. How many children will come through actually will own something? Because the way how the world's going, everything is subscription based. Everything is like leasing, subscription and stuff like that, and it's that how the world is gradually changing to that type of model, where I think we get to be in a base of not really owning too much. Everything is just based on revenue, and I think it's something what schools need to consider as their technology keeps evolving to this sort of revenue sort of based platform. And these are the sort of like the main challenges, what we need to be looking at for our customers, and how we can actually adapt and actually resolve some of these challenges. So within a school environment, basically, the DfE launched some guidance back in 2019 about what schools should start considering, whether they can be our cloud ready, and basically currently looking at what cloud services you currently use at the moment. Could they be adapted as part of a cloud system which you can push across your school? Whether staff, pupils and parents are using unofficial devices within your school, how do you support those devices? Do you want to support those devices? Do they create a risk within your school? Especially when we talk about cybersecurity, we need to consider that. But there might be an absolute reason why that person is using that device, because it's better than what the school can offer them, what they're trying, and they actually get better outcomes and delivering learning outcomes by using this particular device. So we need to find that. Are you using the full potential of devices? So coming with the cloud sort of services, you might find you buy a cloud service for a particular thing, but that cloud service provides a whole peripheral of other sort of services you might not be using, but you're paying for that. And that's that subscription-based model. So you need, are you looking at these things? Are we using these to our full potential? Do you need to look at having old and new devices? Do you have issues in your school where some people get a good experience using IT while others don't, because devices are old in certain areas of school, while in the other areas of school they use new devices? And I always turn around and say that you need to have this constant refresh, constant update of devices to ensure we get a good experience from a learning perspective, a support experience. It's all there. So we need to look at those devices. Can we actually use those old devices still? Is there a way of actually prolonging life for those old devices? I know when Google will probably mention today about basically cloud ready neverwhere, where some of those old devices can be repurposed and be brought up to speed with some of the latest cloud technology available to work with education. And basically, last and finally, when you look at all your services, basically what benefits you get of using these services. And usually everyone will say with cloud, flexibility, work from home, access it from home, learning anywhere, so flexible learning environments. Then the government will ask you about basically, can you use more cloud services? So this is where we start talking about basically moving your infrastructure from basically being a server environment with basically local files and folders sort of saved on a server, accessing using systems using a laptop, or basically when you're at home, you have to go through a rigmarole of actually using VPN connections or certain technology to go through certain bits to make sure you log into a PC in your school or log into your server. Where obviously with a cloud sort of based system, as long as you've got access to an internet browser and internet connection, you can get access to that. It actually creates that true flexible learning environment. Also, you will find that there'll be teachers in your schools who basically be absolute champions about using cloud. How can they be used and basically brought on board to help you design your sort of strategy and move things sort of forward in school? That's very, very key as well. You also probably got parents who are involved in the industry who basically know about this stuff. How can they be involved in helping you get more from those sort of cloud services? And what are experts and people out there to actually talk to? So I said the DfE, that they have a system where there's lots of guidance from the DfE, and we will be sharing that information at the end of the meeting about the DfE guidance, what you can have access to. But also, as part of that, there's a number of, basically the government has a framework called the G-Cloud framework, which is purely there for basically public sector to use to access cloud-based services, whether that's advice or want to look at technology. So basically, how can we help you with this? Because there's quite a lot of stuff to actually go through about all these things, what the government's actually asking. Is that the government creates this digital transformation guidance here, but it could be a lot of wordy, and you might not understand where that is. And that's where companies like ourselves will come in play to help you with this side of things, to help you with that digital transformation, whether you're currently undergoing a transformation or whether you're basically looking at starting from scratch, where we can help you from the inception through to completion so you actually get your objectives. One thing I would point out is that basically I found this when we was looking at these sort of things, is that Damien Hines, Secretary of State in 2019, he basically created a whole document about basically what schools should be doing and how schools should be looking at moving to the cloud to get the best out of technology and how that can impact learning in schools. And he put down in 2019, I visited Woodbury Down School in London, where teachers use cloud technology, share resources, collaborate, saving teachers hours of time a week, which is a massive benefit. And he was saying that in 2019, before the pandemic. And this goes back to where we as a business, I've been preaching this since 2010, 2011 onwards. And this is Secretary of State in 2019 was saying the same sort of things. And then what we found is when the pandemic hit, and as Stephen mentioned earlier on, when the pandemic hit, schools already was gone down this road. They was less impacted by the actual pandemic, as opposed to schools who haven't started this journey yet. And this is why it's important going forward that we do look at digital transformation and how we do utilise the cloud to its best of our abilities. How do we do all this sort of stuff? So the way I would, I created a strategy based in 2018, 2019, a strategy called Your Cloud, and it's freely available for all of our schools who work with ourselves, and we're happy to share this with everyone who's here today to actually look at our strategy, and we can help you with this sort of strategy. It's built on 7 key building blocks, elements, hence the elements, sort of like the diagram we got on the tape on our page there. And the whole aim of the elements is to actually support a school starting a digital transformation journey, or you may already be on that journey, but you'd be able to jump in at any point within this strategy and then start building upon that sort of strategy for you. The 7 basically key elements we have as part of this, and obviously we've got a lot more detail to go through this, but obviously not enough time today to go to, so I'm happy to talk to people outside of this to cover that in more detail, and like I said, we share information with you after this session today. The first basically element you need to have, and when you're building a foundation of digital transformation, is connectivity, and that is basically your internet connection. Without decent internet connectivity, cloud just doesn't work properly. And we usually say for internet connectivity, you are looking at a minimum 20 megabits up and down sort of connection. And it's really important up as opposed to down. A lot of people go, oh, that's great. So we look at home broadband and you have like 70, 100 meg connection, and it looks brilliant, but your upload speed's only like 10 megabyte connections. that causes problems. You need to have it exactly the same speed up and down, because when you're using cloud technology, you're effectively reading and writing to that service. So you want it to be as quick as basically writing and as quick as it is for downloading. Once you've got your internet connectivity in place, then you need to look at your local infrastructure from within your school. Can it support cloud? Can it support the amount of people, an amount of end users, pupils, staff, parent governors, basically after school clubs, connecting to your internet connectivity to making sure it works, and is it fast? Is it adaptable and reliable? And today we've got like D-Link here who's going to cover that side of things for schools. But basically it is really key, your local infrastructure, because usually it's one of the most overlooked things in most education establishments across the UK, that basically everyone likes their shiny devices, they know what internet speeds they've got, but if your switching and your wireless connectivity is not up to scratch, that would be a major bugbear for a school and it won't work properly. So it's key having that infrastructure right. Once you've got those two key elements in place, that's when you start looking at your cloud platform. What is the best cloud platform for you as an organisation? What are you trying to get out of that cloud platform? How do you see that adapting for your school environment, and how basically how useful will that actually be? And you might want 2 cloud platforms, you might want 3 cloud platforms. How can they integrate? What are all those sort of things? So once we decide on the cloud platform, you've got the 3 then key pillars of basically going to the cloud in place. Then basically you look at the other sort of things what are just as important, what we need to then start building before we actually got a fully adapted cloud solution working and we completed our digital transformation. The next thing we need to look at is security. Cybersecurity is really, really big and really, really key at the moment. The government literally, I think 4 weeks ago, so customers who work with ourselves, they would have got the notice because we would have passed it through in our sort of our newsletter guidance to our customers. The National Cyber Centre sent out information on basically what schools and the wider public sector should be doing to protect their cybersecurity during the current Ukraine crisis, which is currently going on, because it is expected that there'll be quite a lot of cyber attacks on infrastructure across the UK and other European countries, obviously. And it's key that basically schools are doing the right thing to making sure their infrastructure is key. And cybersecurity is key for that. And if you've got the basic principles of cybersecurity in place in your organisation, from not just devices managing cybersecurity for yourself and relying on technology, the key cybersecurity thing to work with is actually end users, making sure they're aware of their responsibility, they're aware of what they're doing. And one key thing which we like to promote to our customers is phish threat training. And we've got a technology which allows schools to basically have a number of phish threat training sort of templates set up where you can actually distribute them across to your school, and then basically see if anyone actually clicks on links, what they do. And if they do click on a link, it takes them to a training program to tell them what they've done wrong, and actually tells them basically why they shouldn't be clicking on that. So have a little training course for that. That empowers your end users on getting the best out of cybersecurity and making sure you're cyber safe as an organisation. There's also other things where the government's got in place from the NCA, Cyber Essentials Plus, basically for the public sector, and it goes through like a penetration testing thing, making sure you're safe internally and externally from threats as well. So once you've got your security in place, then you need to look how you manage your devices. And that's that key thing. We're saying loads of different devices in schools these days. So we need to be making sure, are these devices secure? Are they actually meeting our objectives? Are the children getting the best of using those devices? That's where we look at management, and hopefully your cloud platform you choose actually uses with that cloud management platform. Then basically once you've got your management platform in place, it's your type of devices, because you've got your back end in place now, you've got your 5 elements now. Then you need to look at your cloud, you look at your connected devices, and that's where you're looking at your iPads, your Chromebooks, your Windows devices and stuff like that. What is best for me in an organisation? What is best for my sort of children? How do we get the best out of learning, making sure we're making that right investment in devices? And most manufacturers of connected devices, they let you try before you buy, which I stress is really, really key, because you don't want to make a costly investment on buying all these devices and they turn out to be the wrong investment. Working with people like ourselves, we can help you do that sort of like trying before you buy things, so you don't actually waste your investment in on technology. And then the absolute key to complete your digital transformation is our last element, is continuing professional development for your staff, making sure they know how to get the best out of that platform, making sure they're confident using those platforms in your digital transformation. And it's not just a one-off thing, it should be an annual recurrence, an annual thing going on a regular sort of basis. And today we've got primary goals here, who's going to actually help cover that stuff and also show schools what funding is available for you, because you might not have the funding to do it, but there's funding available for you where you won't have the excuse. Where people will help you, and it's funded by government already for you. So we will basically primary goals will cover that today. With that training also comes with support, because the end users, once they've got that in place, they need to have that support, and that's that support for your local technology, local technician, your local IT teams and things. They're dealing with day-to-day issues that go on in your school, fixing things all the time. And they find it hard to keep up to date with the latest things in cloud, the latest things in technology. And working with companies like ourselves, we help train them. We help basically support those people, making sure they're doing the best for your school environment. And that's basically the key thing of the whole digital transformation strategy. Is from basically creating that strategy, making sure you've got the right technology in place, through to actually making sure that your staff are confident and the people supporting your staff are confident in delivering that with the ultimate goal of making sure that the students leaving your school and things, they're getting the best possible education experience using technology. And that's what our whole strategy is about. And like I said, we're happy to talk a bit more in depth about that, but that is in a brief sort of nutshell of what digital transformation does. And what I was going to sort of show you and show everyone is that basically what I'm saying is that we practice what we try to preach. Because us as a business, all the things which we talk about, actually we use as a business as well. So we're using this sort of stuff. And I'm just going to do a really quick sort of demonstration. So I'm using a Windows device, a simple Windows 10 device, what I'm using. Obviously I've got Chrome installed and I use basically Google Drive, things what people are aware of as well. But importantly on this device, when I log into this device, it signs in straight away to my basic Chrome browser. I ain't got to do no more single sign-on. It literally just logs in from my Windows desktop straight into basically Google Drive, and it's actually there for me, and all my information is there available. I can go to Google Classrooms. So if I go to our classrooms, and Google Classrooms, I would like to stress, it's not just about using them for like classroom, like virtual classrooms for teaching. We use them as a business internally for our own teams. And we've got our own staff room in there. So we have a staff room for our staff to respond to and put updates and announcements and things in there as well. We have a project room as well for all the projects we do with our customers. I was talking to a school last week who's also using Google Classroom for like a program office for all the building works that go on in the school throughout the summer holidays. They put all that information there as well. So it can be used more than just the standard sort of classroom as a virtual classroom. You can use it for managing your old operations as a school. We use it. So it's part of the things we think actually it's called a classroom, but actually we use it internally because it can be used a little bit more. It's that question. You get this as part of Google. Why aren't we using these sort of things more? Because we can adapt these as well. Also, what I have got as well, this is obviously on the Windows device. If I click on my Windows Explorer, I've basically got a thing in there called G Drive. If I click on G Drive, it opens up my Google Drive, and I just basically use everything in here. If I go to today's event, we've got a shared folder structure like your shared network drives. And if I click on here, I've got today's company event, and I've got basically an Excel documents in here. I've got presentations, so if I click on a presentation on here, I'm just going to use Lauren's one, but Lauren will cover it. Well, I can actually run a presentation just by clicking on here, and it'll load up basically on my Windows device what Lauren's going to sort of like cover a little bit about today. So I can actually run those sort of things on here. I can run I can run Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoint documents, and edit all those as I would a normal Windows device. But I'm using Google as a back-end technology for that, which I think is really sort of really key for people to use. Yeah, I've got PDFs and things like that. So you can actually run and edit sort of like these documents on here. I can actually work with Windows and Windows, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, no issue within my Google Drive. Also, which is important as well, that this device is actually managed by Google under this under GCVW, that's Google Windows Credential Services. If I basically just go to accounts and I go, so if anyone's using Microsoft Azure, very similar, and I click on information, and you can see it's got policies applied to my device as well on the screen. Maybe a bit too small, but it's got policy device on my screen and with some software which has been deployed as well, all through basically Google sort of cloud, which means as a system, I've got a platform now which I can actually work within my business and within our customers, effectively serverless. And when we're looking at the green agenda, basically we're looking at basically that environment agenda and things, is absolutely like key, because we're cutting down on heavy machinery within our organisations like servers, and we're utilising cloud more, stuff like that. We've actually created an assessment survey. It's totally free of charge to do. Is literally you go through the survey and it will give you a score at the end of that survey, and it will tell you if you're cloud ready or not cloud ready, and it gives you ideas and what you need to improve upon to be cloud ready. And that is just literally, we go over to our website and it's just there, it's that big blue button, we just click on that and take the survey, and that will just tell you if you're cloud ready or you're on the journey for the cloud. Last of all, again, when we talk about practice what we preach, we've got a number of success stories and more than happy for people to go over to here and actually look at a number of schools we work with on doing digital transformation, on-premise server environments to cloud-based technology, and how that's impacted that in school environment as well, so they got the benefits out of that sort of technology. That's really quick. I've tried to, my voice is going a little bit, so I've tried to go through as much as possible within that sort of presentation. If you want to book a session to actually go through a bit more in depth, more than happy to do that sort of side of things. So thank you for your time. I'm now going to pass you across to Mark Carty from D-Link.